The majority leader is recognized to continue sponsoring the measure and to interpellate Senator Rodante Marcoleta.
We'd just like to put on record, Mr. President, we are joined today with a few members of the Parliament, BTA Parliament, particularly Attorney Nagib Sinamilimbo is with us. Also helped us when we craft the Bangsamoro organic law, Mr. President.
Yes, okay. We welcome them to the Senate this afternoon.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President. Mr. President, at the outset, I want to manifest my full support to the measure sponsored by our Majority Leader, Senator Migs, for the bill seeking to reset the first regular elections in Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao to the second Monday of September 2026 and every 3 years thereafter. I would like to raise, however, Mr. President, a few questions on the proposed measure. Mr. President, I would like to seek clarifications regarding the legal readiness of the Bangsamoro electoral framework, particularly on districting, which is essential for the conduct of elections. We recall that Bangsamoro Autonomy Acts, BAA numbers 58 and 77, were declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in October 2025 because the parliamentary districts were not contiguous or adjacent, among other reasons. As a result, the Bangsamoro Transition Authority was directed to pass a valid districting law by October 30, 2025, extended until November 30, 2025, so that Commission on Elections could proceed with elections not later than March 31, 2026. Mr. President, we note that the BTA now enacted BAA 86, a redistricting law on January 12, 2026, which was approved by the Interim Chief Minister on January 20, 2026, thus addressing the Court's directive, albeit beyond the original deadline. Without delving into the reasons for the missed deadline, Mr. President, I would like to be clarified. What specific steps, legal reviews or consultations were undertaken to ensure that BAA 86 fully complies with the Supreme Court's ruling, particularly on the requirements of contiguity and adjacency of districts?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Nung nagkaroon po kami ng committee hearing, yan ang unang-unang tinanong ko, Mr. President, sa kanila, na baka naman maging unconstitutional muli itong BAA 86 na pinasa nila, amendments to the Electoral Code. Pero pinakita naman po nila sa amin, and we had a constitutionalist at that time, which was former Supreme Court Justice Ascuna, and it showed clearly, one of the issues was the gerrymandering. Ibig po sabihin, yung may distrito po sila na nasa isang lugar, tapos may isang bayan na malayo-malayo kasama sa distritong yon. So nagka-problema po sila sa gerrymandering. Ika nga, it was not contiguous. They were able to resolve it under BAA 86. So yung mga malalayo ay sinama na doon sa kabilang distrito at hindi na po nila sinama. Yung pangalawa ay yung violation ng under the law, which is the 120 days, you cannot change the precincts within the 120 days prior to the elections, no? So, ang nangyari po dyan, before October 2025, which was our law that we passed here, I believe it was Senator Amy Marcos who sponsored it, Republic Act 12123, which provided the date of elections of October 2025. Ang nangyari po, lumabas itong BAA 77 prior or after the 120 days was already starting. So obviously the Supreme Court declared it unconstitutional, not of course not in accordance to the law that was passed on the Electoral Code. and also the gerrymandering. Those were the two main issues. So dito po sa BAA 86, Mr. President, itong bagong amendments to the Electoral Code, ginawa na po nilang maayos na dun sa gerrymandering issue, inayos na po yan. At kaya nga po, pasok tayo sa 120 days kung gagawin po natin siyang second Monday of September 2026, which according to Chairman George at that time was enough time for him to be within the 120-day period, Mr. President, Your Honor.
So, Mr. President, what assurances do we have that the BAA 86 can withstand constitutional scrutiny? Because the upcoming elections will not again be jeopardized sana kung walang unconstitutionality pending or potential nullification of the redistricting law by BAA 86. Paano, Mr. President, kung naging unconstitutional? That is the problem.
Well, we will not be able to predict, Mr. President, if there will be someone who will question this law and, of course, BAA 86. But I believe that the members of Parliament of the BTA, the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, was able to comply with the requirement of the Supreme Court to address the issues of unconstitutionality. Particularly po sa gerrymandering, talagang tinanggal na po nila yung malalayong lugar at sinama na po nila ang mga districts, Mr. President. So, I trust the wisdom of this new BAA 86 to be compliant with the constitutional requirements brought about by the Supreme Court ruling. As a matter of fact, we had several legal luminaries during the hearing. As I mentioned, nandun po si Justice Ascuna. And Justice Ascuna mismo nagsabi, now, with these discussions, this was during the end of the committee hearing, Your Honor, after 4 hours of listening to both sides. Nagsalita po siya na he feels it will be compliant. Of course, we cannot guess what the court will decide later on if there will be someone who will be filing a question to the Supreme Court on this particular issue. But we feel in the committee, Mr. President, my dear colleague, Senator Dante, is that we are compliant with the constitutional issues addressed by the Supreme Court ruling.
Meaning to say, Mr. President, we are assuming that nobody will raise the issue of constitutionality with BAA 86, and that if somebody does it, the Supreme Court will simply judge it constitutional. That these are our presumptions.
That is our prayer, Mr. President, yes.
And you share that optimism, Mr. Majority Leader, Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Good luck.
Ultimately, what we want is more peace, Mr. President. Ang worry ko lang is, there are people who want to throw a monkey wrench, Mr. President, with the permission, of course, of Senator Marcoleta. I just want to expound. There are people who want to throw a monkey wrench in the peace process in Mindanao. The best way to destroy the peace process in Mindanao is to subvert their mandate by not allowing elections. So kung palagi tayong postpone, magkakagera talaga muli sa amin po, sa Mindanao, particularly sa Bangsamoro region. Kaya we are hoping that the Supreme Court this time will render this new Bangsamoro Autonomy Act of 86 as constitutional, Mr. President.
Let's move to the electoral framework, Mr. President. We understand that the BTA also passed BAA 88 on January 28, 2026, which amended BAA 35 or the Bangsamoro Electoral Code, which was enacted in March 2023. Given that the BTA had nearly 3 years since the passage of Electoral Code, Mr. President, may I respectfully seek clarification on the following. First, what are the key amendments introduced by BAA 88 and why are these changes necessary at this stage of the electoral timeline?
I believe when it comes, one major reform, Mr. President, is the manner of voting for sectoral representatives, when representatives from the women, youth settler communities, ulama, and traditional leader sectors will now be elected through direct voting by the people, while the non-Moro indigenous peoples will continue to be chosen through an assembly-based process kasi meron po silang FPIC, which is the Free Prior Informed Consent. Traditional po yan sa kanila. So registered parliamentary sectoral organizations will also be allowed to field their nominees or candidates whose names will appear on the ballot. Another important change is the reduction of the electoral threshold for regional parliamentary political parties from 4% to 2.5%, making it easier for smaller parties to gain representation. In addition, the membership requirement has been lowered from 10,000 to 5,000 members, with membership now required to be distributed across the majority of provinces, cities, and municipalities within BARMM rather than across all provinces. Lastly, all parliamentary sectoral organizations, regional parliamentary political parties are required to undergo registration and accreditation, which mandates the Commission to issue implementing rules and conduct the process of registration and accreditation ahead of the filing of certificates of candidacy, manifestations of intent to participate, and similar submissions, Mr. President.
What circumstances or developments prompted these amendments to be made only very recently, considering that they directly affect COMELEC's preparations, particularly in the accreditation of political parties and even sectoral organizations?
Yeah. Actually, I asked, because umalma din yung ibang sectors, bakit nawala yung original plan, which is also chosen through assembly-based process. The problem with assembly-based process, Mr. President, is parang magtatawag ka ng tao, tapos magkakaroon ng election dun sa assembly. We felt that that was more unconstitutional, Mr. President, because the best way to actually carry the voice of a sector is through regular type of elections where the women's sector is elected by all members of the BARMM areas, all provinces, all districts that will be able to participate. Ang mangyayari kasi dyan, baka may isang assembly lang po sa Cotabato at sasabihin nila, itong aming member sa kababaihan, so women, paano naman kung nagkaroon din ng assembly dun sa Tawi-Tawi, nagkaroon din sa Basilan, sino pipiliin ng BTA or the Bangsamoro Parliament na talagang magdadala ng boses ng kababaihan? So the best way to do it is really through an electoral process where they get to choose. So yung hindi lang pong ginawa ng ganyan is to respect also their customs and traditions are the indigenous peoples, yung mga non-Moro IPs, kasi meron talaga silang assembly-based process. As a matter of fact, sa Bukidnon, kakatapos lang, although they're not from BARMM, we just elected our IPMR that's the indigenous peoples member representative in the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. Tapos ang nangyari dyan ay may sarili silang proseso sa pagpili. Hindi po halalan, parang nagme-meeting po lahat ng mga IPs from the different towns at sila po ang nagde-declare sino yung magiging member of the provincial board. So, ganun din ang mananatili sa non-Moro IPs. But for all the others, Mr. President, to avoid confusion and possibly conflict, the best way to do it is mahalal na po sila. They have to register na ako po, si so-and-so, representative ng youth sa COMELEC, at ilalagay na po yung pangalan po ng grupo nila doon at ihalal po sila sa kababaihan at sa iba't ibang sektor. On the issue naman po, is the reduction of the electoral threshold for the regional political parties from 4% to 2.5% is to allow more representation, Your Honor. Kasi ang nangyayari, iisa lang o dadalawa lang pong grupo ang makakuha ng 4% at makakuha ng 10,000 members distributed all around the provinces. Kawawa naman yung mas maliliit na grupo po, Your Honors. There's several smaller groups of our Bangsamoro brothers and sisters that want to also participate in the parliamentary elections but cannot do so because of the very prohibitive number of 10,000 members in each community. or province or city plus a threshold of 4% total. So, medyo malaki po. Kasi 4% total population of BARMM is in the hundreds of thousands din, di ba? Malaki din yung 4%. So, binabaan na lang po para mas inclusive po siya.
I'm only interested, Mr. President, on how optimistic you can be, considering that these changes were made very, very recently. But if these changes are really significant and they contribute to the orderly conduct of the elections in the BARMM, I have no problems with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with you to that, sir.
Mr. President, a very urgent petition was filed before the Supreme Court asking the High Court to declare as unconstitutional the appointments of BTA's Chief Minister Abdul Rauf Makakwa and 5 other BTA members. The petitioners argued that Article 16, Section 2 of the Bangsamoro Organic Law states that the MILF shall lead the BTA in recognition of its role in the peace process in Mindanao without prejudice to the participation of the Moro National Liberation Front. It is argued that the Bangsamoro Parliament is composed of 80 members all over the region, but only 34 MILF members were appointed, and that the MILF endorsed members should be at least 41 instead of 34 for the legislative measures to prevail. Should the Supreme Court rule in favor of the petitioners and declare the appointments as unconstitutional, what will be its effect?
There will be an absence of authority. Kaya nga po, Mr. President, yung gusto ko po, personal opinion ko po is, kaya dapat talaga magkaroon ng halalan. Kasi kung right now we are operating on a temporary state.
Ako gusto ko rin po eh. Kasi matagal na talaga yan eh.
I totally agree
Ang
with
problema
you, sir.
po, paano kung, halimbawa, kaya tanong ko, paano kung dineclare na naman na constitutional? Will it have the effect of, again, resetting
Hindi naman po,
the
sir.
election?
Hindi naman po, sir.
Sana
ang
po,
mangyayari
di ba?
kasi, ang mangyayari kasi dyan, I believe that Malacanang would have to learn its lesson and will have to appoint 41 members of the MILF and more members of the MNLF. Their contention with me is that Chief Minister Makakwa is a member of the MILF, although maybe another faction, kasi faction din po sila. There's a government faction, and there's of course the ideologue faction of Chairman Murad. So the only way to answer that, Your Honor, to be honest about it, and I think we all agree, let's take it to a vote and let the people decide once and for all. I think that would be the best, Mr. President.
But in the, I would say, remote possibility that the Supreme Court will hold it unconstitutional, will it affect BAA 86, Mr.
Hindi naman
President?
po, sir. Hindi naman po, sir.
You are
Hindi
sure,
naman.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Hindi naman po, sir. Kasi batas po siya. So it's a law it's a national law declaring the date already of the elections, which the COMELEC would be already prioritizing, at the same time also preparing for, including the registration of the new party list members and all the members of the different districts. I think it will not affect the election per se, because that's a different topic altogether. Ang mangyayari siguro dyan, maging null and void po yung position ni na Chief Minister Makakwa kung lumabas po na Supreme Court ruling tungkol dyan na unconstitutional yan, and they will have to appoint within the parameters of the BOL law, which basically is the 41 members coming from the MILF, and I think they'll just have to comply with that. But the elections, Mr. President, Senator Marcoleta, I don't think it will be hampered in any way on the date of the elections.
So from today until the second Monday of September 2026, we will have to keep our fingers crossed, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Thank
We
you,
are
Mr.
praying for
President.
that. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you.
To continue interpellation, the Senator Ping Lacson, the President Pro Tem, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, let me clarify that I am not objecting to the measure under consideration. Rather, this is a manifestation of concern, particularly on a potential constitutional infirmity. I will cite Article 18 of the Constitution, transitory provision. No? And I will deal with that by way of citing Abbas Kida versus Senate of the Philippines, GR number 196271, October 18, 2011. Nireaffirm po ng Supreme Court yung constitutional mandate for synchronized national and local elections under the 1987 Constitution, recognizing synchronization as a core constitutional principle that shapes the structure of Filipino democratic governance, Mr. President. Yung Court's decision upheld Republic Act number 10153, the statute that reset the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, or ARM, elections to coincide with regular synchronized elections. Kasi ginawa natin noon, second Monday of May.
Yes, sir.
But under the measure, particularly or specifically Section 1, that seeks to amend Section 13, Article 16 of Republic Act number 11054, otherwise known as the Organic Law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, inaamin po natin na ginagawa nating second Monday of September 2026 and every 3 years thereafter. So does it mean na
Hindi
maging
masisynchronize.
permanent na po ito na every second Monday of September?
That was the idea, Mr. President, but I agree to your proposed amendment when we discussed it on the
At the
on
proper
floor.
time.
The proper time, Your Honor.
Yes.
I accept na kaagad. I accept that we synchronize it. And I believe the good gentleman from Cavite has the perfect amendment, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. No, meron pang isang concern but will not go there anymore kasi mas lalo ma-complicate. Kasi doon din sa Abbas doctrine or sa jurisprudence, it also illustrates the limits of legislative and judicial intervention regarding the terms of elective officials. Pero sabi ko, wag na natin pag-usapan muna yon. Because what I will be proposing later during the period of amendments is that payagan na nating mag-extend sila. No?
Yes, sir.
If we hold this particular election in September
Yes, sir.
2026, let them extend their term of office hanggang sa June 30 of 2028.
June 2031. Yes, sir.
2031.
Yes, sir.
Napaboran na sila ng how many months, Your Honor?
1 year and 17 months.
Never mind that. Sa kanila natin itackle pag may nag-question
Opo.
sa Supreme Court. But that's all that I have to express, Mr. President. And at the proper time, I will introduce my my proposed amendment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
President.
Mr. President.
And I will gladly accept. I agree with the good gentleman from Cavite, Mr. President. Mr. President, the last to interpolate, I believe, is our distinguished minority floor leader, but he's not here at the moment. We can suspend, Mr. President. I move to suspend consideration till tomorrow, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is suspended.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session suspended.